It's time, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages. It is time for the tabletop role-playing game community's #1 game show, Wheel of Irrelevance. And this week's topic is ding rules as written, and more specifically, 1-to-1 time. This week's episode of Totally Irrelevant and Ridiculous is the now going on almost 3 weeks argument over 1.1 time in tabletop role-playing game. And I have a feeling this argument's even deeper than that. And after reading some of the hundreds of spot posts that have appeared on my Twitter feed, I gotta wonder how many of these people are just having a laugh. And they're just like, wow, that guy's really serious about this. Let's fuck with him. Because this has got to be, of all the tabletop role-playing game community topic controversies we have gotten angry about, this has got to be the dumbest, or at least in the top 5 of dumbest. And basically, the argument is broken down into how much time passes, and how long are we, and how long does it take, how long's a round, how long's a turn, what happens when the game ends if we're still in the dungeon, is it 1 hour of game time equals 1 hour of real time? Well, then what happens if we've only played 3 hours and then we stop and we don't play again for a month? Does that mean our characters are just standing still in a room for a month? I mean, I don't know. What does 1.1 time mean? It's in the rules, but I mean, does anybody really? It's just and I don't know. And a thing and math and numbers, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, sciencey thing. You are, in a sense, arguing about time in an imaginary game where imaginary things are happening, and what happens to your imaginary characters when the game ends. See, and that's the basis of the argument, is how much time passes. If we play for an hour, is that an hour in real time? So does that mean when our characters rest for 8 hours, we have to stand around as players for 8 hours? If a day passes in real life, does a day pass in the game? If it's Christmas in real life, if it's Christmas in the game, if we play for 3 hours, does that mean we've traveled for 3 hours through the dungeon? Well, what happens when the game ends? Do we just stop? Our characters just stop and just stand there until we return? What if we don't return for a year? Our characters have just aged a year standing there in suspended animation and nothing has happened to them? Or is it more realistically that game time and real time are two completely different things? Okay, because as it is, time in a tabletop role-playing game is more of a idea than an actual rule, because we have rounds and turns and sub-turns and reaction turns, and I mean, long rest and short rest, and how much time it takes to do something. And the DM can speed up time, the DM can slow out time, the DM can say things like, yeah, okay, time passes, you leave town. Time is subjective to the group. And especially when you get to the end game, because we've got like games that say, well, whenever the game ends, you're back in town. How does that work? I don't know. You could be hundreds of miles away from town. You could be knee deep in a dungeon, and the 3-6 hour game time has come to an end, and everybody's just like, okay, we got to call it here, guys. I got to go pick up my kid from school or whatever. And the game ends, and and that means you're just suddenly back in town. The game always starts with you being back in town. How did you get back in town? Magic. Doesn't matter. Really? It's a game. And if it doesn't have that rule, what happens? I've been in plenty of games where we have stopped mid combat to have a cliffhanger ending, and then picked it up right where we left off the next time we played, even if that was like 2 months later, because we took pictures and we wrote down. So yeah, it doesn't matter. It's 1.1 time, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not worth arguing about. And I gotta think that some of these arguments that people have been posting, and here's just one with like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 responses, and this is just like today. And it goes on and on and on without, you just go through Twitter and we just do the 1.1 time. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1 time. And just hundreds from the Bro SR, from Crafty Matt, from Harmony Ginger, just on and on and on and on and on. Here's where it started, I think, is this one. This was from my buddy Diversity and Dragons when he was trying to understand it, and that got him 71 responses, and some of those responses got responses, and it's just how much time. And basically, again, it just all breaks down to wibbly wobbly, timey wimey stuff. How much time and what happens when the game ends? Right? That's what it's all about, right? It's just when the game ends, you're automatically back in town, even if you're hours away and in the middle of shit. Just bam, you're back in town. Okay, how does that happen? Doesn't matter. It's a fucking game. Time in the game is exactly the same as real life. So if we play for 4 hours, you're in the dungeon for 4 hours. Well, does that mean if I need 6 hours to remember my spell, my character has to sit around for 6 hours and my player has to sit around for 6 hours? What am I supposed to do during those 6 hours? Just sit in your house, Jim, while I'm rememorizing my spell? Huh? Because I got to go home, Jim. I'm not going to stay in your house for 6 hours just so my character can rememorize a spell. And if I go home, does that mean my character has gotten up, left the dungeon, and gone to my house? Is my character going to work? No, that's dumb. That's dumb. And if the game ends, does that mean, our characters just stop and they're in the suspended animation until we start again? But what if the amount of time that's gone between games is a week, a month, a year? Does that mean a year has passed in real time? And when we get back to the dungeon and the suspended animation lifts, a year has passed? And if we've been standing in that room for a year, how come nobody ate us? Or is the entire world in suspended animation until we return? The world doesn't continue if we're not there. Are we just in an animatronic simulation? Are we just on a Dungeons and Dragons the ride? And when we get off the ride to go home, the universe of the ride is just on hold till the next time we come back to ride the ride again, and we just pick off where we left off as if no time has passed. Well, if no time has passed, then it's not 1.1. It's dumb. It's dumb. Stop it. Invest your energy in something slightly more productive. It's a game. It's a game. God damn it, Jim, it's a game. Okay? How much or how little time that passes in the imaginary world of your imaginary characters is completely subjective. It doesn't matter. You could have an entire year pass in a minute. You could ignore time completely. You could just have the demon, say, okay, we spend 3 days in town, we heal up, we equip, and then we head back out. I don't want to waste the time shopping and doing all that stuff. It's, we just bam, unless it's really, really important, there's no reason to talk about it, right? Or you could go, okay, let's really go over what you do in right now because it's very important because of the ticking of the calendar. And each GM is different, each game is different, each situation is different, each hour of play is different. Time is subjective at the tabletop role-playing game. It's like the infinite improbability drive from Hitchhikers, or the drive that was based upon the math that's conducted on a waiter's price tag. Remember that one? The other drive that was in Hitchhikers, right? Time is relative to the perception of the people there, and the time in the tabletop role-playing game is only as specific as you need it to be. You want it to be 1 hour for 1 hour? Great. You want it to be 6 hours passed in the wave of a hand? Great. You need a year to pass, but you don't want to actually spend a year standing there. You really expect me to wait a year in your house because a year has passed in game? No one's going to do that, are they? Are you going to feed me? Are you going to clothe me? Are you going to pay me to sit around your house for a year? No, it's dumb. It's a game. Get over it. I don't care what Raw says. I don't care what Gygax says. I don't care what the BroSR says. It's a game. Who cares about the time in the game? Time is as long or as short as you need it to be to do what you need to do. Bam! That's all I have to say. Please feel free to point out how I am incorrect. I'll get to y'all later. Have a great day. I'm going to go waste some time by enjoying this lovely spring morning because it's gorgeous outside. So talk to y'all later. Now get off my land. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.